Good morning, and thank you all for coming. This has been truly an event organised by the community of Newcastle, and we're proud of the fact that we're working together to recognise important marks in our region's history. So what we're going to do today is we have an exhibition of material that has come up from Canberra, and I'd like you all to take the opportunity later to have a look at that. We have a series of speakers, and we do have morning tea following the event, and our primary event today is to unveil the very nice bronze plaque that was provided to us. The Australian Agricultural Company, which is Australia's oldest company, was formed in 1824 and started working here in Newcastle in 1827, 1830. So it's a company that has essentially its roots here in Newcastle, and it is still alive today. It is continually operating, and we do thank the Australian Agricultural Company for their support and providing the beautiful bronze plaque that we will be unveiling later.
It's very significant, of course, today that we are plaquing the Australian Agricultural Company, and it is unfortunate that with bushfires raging in his area, Tim Fisher can't be here, because Tim, of course, is on the board of the AA Company, now of course not operating in the mining area, and I think that's a long time gone, but operating of course in the pastoral industry across much of Australia. If you think about the development of Newcastle, if you think about where its parks are, if you think of its street pattern and its railway pattern, and of course if you think of those rights of way hopefully that will be maintained for future transport, much of that footprint has a lot to do with the AA Company. So it is a very significant day. It's fantastic to be here along with historians, people with an interest in industry and the history of industry, and also of course people from Newcastle with a genuine interest, as we always have, in what is happening in our town. So welcome everybody, thank you for coming, and let's share in a very significant period of Newcastle history, 1831, the first railway in Australia. Thank you for coming.
We're here today to celebrate 175 years of industrial heritage, and we're able to do that because 176 years ago a surveyor came up with this map. So we're very pleased to be able to reinterpret that map. The second John in my line of discussion today is John de Gravio from the University of Newcastle, who's standing over there in the black shirt and the cowboy hat, attempting to hide behind a camera. Now John found this map, of all places, in New Zealand, in the archives, which is his specialty, and we thank you very much, John, for your research. The third John in the line of Johns is John Wilson, standing here in the white shirt. John is our surveyor that undertook, as part of his university project, the reinterpretation of this plan to be able, in modern terms, to redefine those positions as set out in that plan. The A pit is situated, thanks to John's discovery, in the swimming pool behind the Bolton's buildings, up on the side of the hill behind the picture theatres here. The proposed site of the first coal loader is across, marked near that puppy dog, on the concrete behind the camera. And that's been fixed thanks to John's redefinition of all of those original sites. These sites were not linked by streets in those days, they were independent parcels of land. John was able to identify the fact that we had the corner of the old hospital, the corner of the burial ground below the cathedral, and a number of other points that are indicated here. Check those against modern measurement, confirm their accuracy, and hence redefine the site of this original wharf.
As you all know, the AA Company started out in 1824 as a sheep company. It had a nominal capital of £1 million. It was never fully called the £1 million. It got to about 100,000 in the early days. The company, by early 1825, the company had barely got its act together on pastoral matters when it was approached by the British government to take over the coal mines in Newcastle. The coal mines in Newcastle were worked, as we all know, by convicts under government supervision, and the British government thought this was not right. Having been persuaded to take over the coal mines, the company threw itself into the venture, recruiting in a colliery establishment. The labour was to be supplied by convicts, but the company had to send out managers and technical people. They purchased colliery equipment, mostly pumping equipment, and half a mile of railway. In July 1826, the colliery establishment, headed by John Henderson with his wife and family, and including the brakesman James Steele, a sinker and a corver, that's a basket maker for raising the coals, a collier, 2 colliery labourers, 220 Saxon Merino ewes, and 3 horses, set out on the ship Australia. After a voyage of 4 months, the Australia arrived in Port Jackson. John Henderson and other company representatives went to see the governor, who was all-powerful in New South Wales. But in the way of these things, he hadn't yet received his instructions from London, so he didn't know they were coming. He was very helpful. He said they were most welcome to inspect the mines in Newcastle and explore anywhere they liked, but they couldn't have the coal mines. John Henderson came to Newcastle and he drew a plan which is up there on the wall. He then went down and bored all along the Parramatta River with no success. After a few months with very little happening, the company's local management broke up the coal establishment. James Steele went to Port Stephen. John Henderson went home to England to see the directors. The steam engines were left in store in Sydney. The colliery apparatus and the railway went to Port Stephens. Neither the directors nor the British government were terribly happy about this development. The company offered to give up the project if they were compensated. That didn't go down well with the British government. The British government instructed Governor Darling in New South Wales that he was to hand over the coal mines like it or not. The man who made this decision was the Colonial Secretary at that time, William Huskisson, and strangely, a few months later, he was the first railway accident. He was run over at the opening of the Liverpool to Manchester Railway. To compensate the company for its trouble and expenditure to this time, the company was given a 31-year monopoly of coal mining in New South Wales. That meant that no land that was granted after 1831 was to have its mineral rights, so nobody else could work for coal, and no convict labour was to be supplied for the working of coal. The company was to be it. And that lasted until 1846, when the company gave up its monopoly in order to enable to obtain the freehold title to its 1 million acres of pastoral land and its 2,000 acres of freehold land in Newcastle. John Henderson returned to New South Wales in the Elizabeth, accompanied by the new company surveyor Henry Danger, whom you would know for his earlier survey of Newcastle and his naming of the streets. The new cargo included 20 fathoms of boring rods. It was a very long and tedious voyage, made even longer by the fact that the cargo for Hobart Town, which was the first port, had been loaded underneath the cargo for Newcastle, and so the ship had to be completely unloaded in Hobart and then reloaded for Newcastle. Henderson was not a happy man when he arrived. On arrival, he inspected the steam engines, carefully packed in grease, in Captain Bunn's warehouse in Sydney, and arranged for their removal to Newcastle. The company's coaster, the Lambton, brought the railway line and the pumping apparatus down from Port Stephens. Henderson then himself came to Newcastle, and after consultation with Sir Edward Parry, who, by the way, was a Navy man, of course, decided on the site for this company's wharf. Henderson first bored in the water pit of the government pit to see what the strata was like and so on. But he soon abandoned that one. He found good coal, but the seam was only 15 inches thick. To avoid the ubiquitous quicksands all around this area, he then went over the hill and bored on what he called the upper flat. He found a good seam of coal and then chose his site on the lower flat up near the Boltons, which conveniently was just needed just half a mile of railway from the site to the wharf. In December 1830, the company accepted William Moore's tender to put down the engine pit. A drain was put in to take away the water, and you can see those in the illustrations, and the foundations were put in for the steam engine and the blacksmith shop. James Steele, who had come back from Port Stephens to Newcastle, came up with an ingenious design, which has already been mentioned, to have a self-acting inclined railway by which the full railway skips pulled the empty ones back up the inclined plane. There was then a dead flat level railway out to the wharf, the top of which was 13 feet above high water. In the middle of 1831, the government works were stopped and all the convicts were moved over to the company's works on the hill. By November 1831, the works were looking very fine, I quote Sir Edward Parry. In December, Sir Edward Parry went down to Sydney to meet the new governor, Governor Burke. On his way back to Port Stephens, back to Newcastle on the Sophia Jane, he was here to witness the ceremony. As he wrote to the directors and the dispatchers inside, I was present at the opening of the company's new wharf at Newcastle, from which 2 tons of excellent coal were pro forma delivered on board the Sophia Jane steam vessel. Incidentally, they were gratis as well as the first 2 tons were gratis. The wagons, each containing a ton, came along the railway from the pit's mouth in a very handsome style, with a flag flying, and amidst the cheers of our miners and 3 hearty cheers from a considerable concourse of people following the discharge of the first ton into the vessel. In offering you, gentlemen, my hearty congratulations on the opening of these works, which are of course unique in the colony, it gives me great pleasure to express my opinion that this enterprise can scarcely fail to produce to the company a fair profit upon the capital which has been expended during my administration of your affairs. And it was a success and a profit. 2 more pits were put down on the hill before the company moved its operations to Hamilton, finally returning to this side of the company's land, the sea pit, in 1885. The company's coal operations in Newcastle ended in 1916. The railroad, the low-level bridge, remained on the site until 1865. By that point, the new municipality of Newcastle, formed in 1859, one of its first moves was to put pressure on the company to remove that railway level. And it was both government money and company money. The company sent out a new iron bridge, which was put up over the Hunter River, over Hunter Street, and it remained until 1923. And when the new iron level bridge were put in, all the company's states were raised at the same time, making them more effective. The company's head office remained here until 1964, and at that point the last major link between the company's early and major contribution to the Australian coal industry and railway history was broken. Thank you.
Penny, thank you for being with us. You're a wealth of knowledge, and this is an important time in our history. And as we thank you for making the effort of being here today and travelling from the ANU to be with us. This is the first time that Newcastle has celebrated being the birthplace of railway in Australia. That's no mean achievement. It is generally widely believed that Australian railway operations commenced with the first steam locomotive powered passenger trains. However, the Australian Agricultural Company, Australia's oldest company, developed a network of railways to move coal 25 years before the first locomotive arrived in Australia, and you've heard a bit about that story this morning. We are here today to recognise and celebrate the achievement of our industrial pioneers. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, I get excited about that because they rode around that corner up there, which we now know as Nobbies, looking for convicts, and they saw the coal on the beaches. And that was just a little over 200 years ago. And from that time forward, this city has been a city where men and women came to work. They dug coal, they put it in ships, and the ships took it to the rest of the world. Isn't that exciting? Isn't it exciting to think that that was just 200 years ago? And we're the ones here today celebrating that work. And that was real work. That was work where you cared about the person working alongside you because it was dangerous. But it really set the form and shape of this city and the people who are here. Ladies and gentlemen, the first private mining company, the first railway, the first coal loader, the first steam-powered ship, all in this location. At this location on the 10th of December 1831, the work at Newcastle changed from a harsh penal colony, as we've heard, to the beginning of an incredible growth into a busy port and industrial centre that we know it today. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I just say, and I steal the words that Penny used, in a handsome style, these hoppers came down the hill to the resounding noise of 3 cheers. Would you join with me and as we unveil the plaque to celebrate the 175th anniversary of Australia's first railway in handsome style? Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Congratulations to the organisers. It's great to be here. It's fabulous history.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I did intend that one of our speakers today was to be Mr. Tim Fischer, our ex-Deputy Prime Minister. As indicated earlier, he can't be here. He was going to speak just before we unveiled the plaque, but he has sent me this email. It's an email from Mr. Tim Fischer. Would I please read this message out to you? Greetings to all the people of Newcastle. Newcastle has the right to be proud of being the location of Australia's first railway, designed and built by James Steele from near Newcastle on Tyne, a friend of George Stephenson, and the first engineer appointed by the Australian Agricultural Company shortly after its formation in 1824. I salute the teams of workers who opened up the coal mines of Newcastle, built Australia's first railway, and dispatched our first corporate export coal to the world, in fact to India. I salute those today who have helped commemorate this vital railway heritage of New South Wales and Australia. I apologise for my last-minute withdrawal due to the extreme Victorian bushfires burning near our farm and house just near Mount Buffalo, but have a great unveiling. Cheers to all and season's greetings. Signed, Tim Fischer, Director of the Australian Agricultural Company and Chairman of Tourism Australia. Tim obviously recognises the significance of what we're doing here today. So I would now have been saying thank you to Mr. Tim Fischer for his words. Thank you, Tim. I'd now like to call upon the Lord Mayor to unveil the plaque, ceremoniously unveil the plaque. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. And morning tea will be served following the plaque unveiling. Thank you all, and morning tea is now served over at the marquee for everybody here. Thank you all for coming.